Let's open up to Temidin UMusafin. The Rambam himself is going to go on a little bit of a tangent. Sometimes you have certain sections of halacha, like in the Mishnah. What doesn't have a Masechta? Is there a Masechta Kriyas Torah? So from no, there's no Masechta Kriyas Torah. A lot of what we have Kriyas Torah is in Megillah. Megillah is chock full of a lot of things that have nothing to do with Purim and the Megillah. Why would that be the case? Yerushalmi, it's the same. It's a tractate Megillah. But I'm saying Kriyas Torah, there's no Kriyas Torah, or the holiday of Shavuos doesn't have a Masechta, right? So where do we have the halacha specifically? There's Bikurim and Menachos. It talks about the Shtei Lechem, right? For example, we were just studying Bechoros, right? There's the Rambam has Hilchos Bechoros, and Meiser Behema is tacked on there. And in Sota, Maseches Sota, that's where you find Birkas Kohanim and Hakil, right? There's no Maseches Hakil, there's no Maseches Birkas Kohanim. So where is that found? Those aren't real Talmud. Those are post-Talmudic. The Rambam didn't hold to them, even. Yeah. Anything after the Bavli is not canon. Yeah, they're all after the Bavli. They're Geonic times. Yeah.
The Geonim are quoted in the Gemara.
No, Geonic means... When you say the Geonim, Rav Hai Gaon, Rav Sadia Gaon are not in the Gemara.
Do you add it?
There are Geonim who may have added things to our Gemaras, but the Geonim are not characters in the Gemara.
Oh, okay.
And that's a doctoral type of thing to discover what parts of what you and I know as the Talmud are actually not Talmud. Okay, so in the Mishnah, you have topics that don't get their own Masechtas, so they're stuck into other Masechtas. Brachos doesn't just cover Brachos. So it's Tefillah, right? Yeah, it covers a lot. So Shabbos is mostly Shabbos, but then again, a lot of what we call Shabbos is an Erevin. Okay? It's like Shabbos part 2. Yeah, because that's talking about Yontif. So I like Sota. Sota is a good example. There's certain issues, or what do you call it? A Shiluach HaKain. Where's that found? It's Chulin, I think. Okay? Whatever it is. Shiluach HaKain doesn't have its own, Masechta, right? So the Rambam also puts it in there, like it's in Kedusha, in Shchita, right? Shiluach HaKain, if I'm not mistaken. See, my BQs isn't that good. Well, Kinim doesn't have to do with Shiluach HaKain. What does Kinim have to do with it? Even though it's like Shiluach HaKain means driving the mother bird out of the nest, and Kinim means nests. But Kinim is actually having nothing to do with a nest. It's just an expression, meaning a pair of birds. Okay, a man who brings a korban to the temple, consisting of birds, a woman especially, she brings them in pairs, 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons. So that's called a nest. It's a figure of expression. It has nothing to do with the nest. Shiluach HaKain actually involves a nest and just a mother bird. Okay, so there you go. It's not a korban. That's yeah. So the Rambam in Temidin UMusafin brings up a few of the different korbanos. So we talked about the daily service. We discussed it actually in 2 shiurim. We talked about the lechem apanim, and the Rambam then talks about the various musafim. So there's the musaf of Rosh Chodesh, which is pretty simple. It just means a lot more to bring on the mizbeach, right? Musaf of Rosh Chodesh means 10 extra korbanos, 10 extra olos, and another he goat as a sin offering. And then he says, on Passover we bring the Omer. The second day of Passover is Korban Omer. And that's a whole big service to which he dedicates a chapter. We also saw that there are two prohibitions before bringing the Omer. What are they? Can't eat the Chadash. That's brought in Ma'achal Zasuros. And you also can't actually reap. Okay? Aside from the fact that you shouldn't be eating the new grain crop, really you shouldn't have been reaping the new grain crop until they reap the Omer. So those halachas are brought in Temidin UMusafin. The fact that you can't start reaping until after bringing the Omer. And in Ma'achos Service, it talks about how you shouldn't even eat it. It seems to be the same standard. And then he brings in the mitzvah also of counting the Omer, which the Rambam holds as a mitzvah d'oraisa even today. And then the Rambam talks about the Shtei Lechem, counting the Omer. On the 50th day of the Omer, which is Shavuos, you bring Shtei Lechem, and that's a complicated mitzvah. And there, because Chazal began to talk about this issue, the Rambam also brings up this issue about priorities. Priorities in sacrifices. What happens if you don't have enough sacrifice to go around? We're going to change our medium of speaking right now. Can you still hear me right now? Is my sound being picked up?
I would say it's better.
Oh, it's better. Okay, good. So let's continue with what we're doing. I'm going to open it up and put it on the screen. This is Sefer Avoda. You have that. Temidin and UMusafin. We're going to go to the end of the 8th parak. Okay? The end of the 8th parak. We alluded to this, I think, 2 weeks ago. The end of the 8th parak talks about what happens if you don't have enough animals in the temple. Now, this could happen. You used to say that they had spare animals always ready, especially lambs. What's the most common sacrifice? 2 lambs in their first year. The Temidin are always kvasim b'nei shana. It means lambs in their first year, males. And that's, by the way, a korban pesach can also be made of that. And when you have a musaf, you have at least 7 more of those. Not Shabbos. Shabbos means you need 4 lambs. And the musaf of Rosh Chodesh, for example, which we just had today, means 7 more lambs, 9 lambs. And if it's Shabbos, you need 11 of them. Fine. So lambs is what you need the most. I don't know why it's not loading on the screen, but can't see it here. The Rambam says, "Lo nimtzeu ela shnei chavasim, im rakrivu tan l'musaf hayom ein lam temidin l'machar." Let's say it's Shabbos. We have 2 lambs for the Tamid and 2 lambs for Musaf. But if we use these 2 lambs for Musaf right now, we will not have lambs for tomorrow's Tamid. What do we do? So the Rambam says, Harei davar shakul. Actually, it's a pretty good toss-up. If they decided, you know what, use them for Musaf today, so what's done is done. And if they want to say, you know what, we need to save them for tomorrow, so save tomorrow. I would have said, my Havamina would have been, if I didn't know the halacha here, if I wasn't cheating by reading the Rambam, I would have said, bring them as Musaf today, because by tomorrow maybe we'll get some lambs. Right? What? How do you know? Tomorrow's Sunday.
I guess they couldn't find. The Rambam is speaking after they couldn't find.
After they couldn't find? Well, it's Shabbos. It's a Musaf. He's talking about two for Musaf right now. I don't know. Tomorrow, I don't know what tomorrow will bring. How'd you get lambs to begin with? I understand on Shabbos you can't bring in lambs from outside because it's Shabbos. You're not even going to walk out, you can barely walk 2,000 amos beyond the city. And you can't bring in anything from beyond the city. But once Shabbos is out, you could go find lambs, find a herd somewhere, go get some lambs. So why did you say, worry about tomorrow? It must be they knew there were no lambs around. Or it could be, maybe tomorrow is one of those situations that they try to avoid. Tomorrow's Yom Kippur. You have Musaf for today, and on Yom Kippur, of course, you have the 7 lambs for the Musaf, straight up. Then there's the special Yom Kippur sacrifices. The special Yom Kippur sacrifices do not involve any lambs, right? It just involves more bull, rams, and goats, but not extra lambs. The Musaf has 7 more lambs. So they know tomorrow's Yom Kippur. They have 9 lambs right now, 2 for today's Musaf, and 7 for tomorrow's Musaf, and they're not going to have a Tamid if they use all the lambs right now. Okay? Lu Yitzuyar. Or tomorrow is Yontif. Shabbos going into Yontif. Yontif, it's a little bit harder to come by lambs. Okay? Whatever it might be, this was an actual case. Either way, we're going to see that this actually is a good segue into the next series of halachas where the Rambam, he's going to begin by talking about Rosh Hashanah. You're going to see that the subsequent halachas is a topic entirely unto itself. Okay? Priorities. Let's go into it. The Musaf of the first of Tishrei is Par, Wa'ayil, Wishivach Lasim, Hakol Olov. 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs, everything's a burnt offering, with Sa'ir Hatath Anechaleth. And a he-goat that's a sin offering that's eaten. And by the way, this sacrifice is basically identical to which sacrifice? We've seen until this point. It's the same Musaf as Rosh Chodesh and the 7 days of Passover and Shavuos, except 1 bull less. It's the same exact thing. Nothing there. And we're going to see this is going to be the exact same korban that's going to be offered when? on Yom Kippur and on Shmini Atzeres. V'zeh Musaf Hayom, Yater Musaf Rosh Chodesh, Hakarev B'chol Yom Rosh Chodesh. And this is the Musaf of the first of Tishrei, aside from the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, because the first of Tishrei is Rosh Chodesh, which means you're really going to have 3 bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs, and 2 he-goats as a sin offering. Basically double. There's a Rosh Chodesh, and there's a Rosh Hashanah Musaf. And they're identical except for Rosh Hashanah is just 1 bull, and Rosh Chodesh is 2 bulls. Kind of funny, right? Yeah, and that's what Torah says. Milvad olad ha-chodesh. Olad ha-tamid and olad ha-chodesh. Which means that Rosh Chodesh is inherently different from Rosh Hashanah. There's the Rosh Chodesh aspect, and there's the Rosh Hashanah aspect.
So don't say Hallel on Rosh Hashanah.
Well, Hallel was not saying they did in temple times on Rosh Chodesh. Remember? Rav Ikloi Levavel, Rav, who lived in the 3rd century, went to Bavel after Rabbi Yehuda Nasi died and discovered that they were saying Hallel on Rosh Chodesh. Then he was like, what's going on? Okay, so no, they did not say Hallel in the temple on Rosh Chodesh. He says, goes on, Lefichach im Chalioth b'Shabbat, if Rosh Hashanah is Shabbos, 3 musafs. Hayu sham shlosha musafim, there are 3 musaf offerings. Musaf Shabbos, Musaf Rosh Chodesh, Musaf Hayom. So, wait a minute, 3 musafs to do. So which goes first? What's the general rule? Tadir, right? So Rambam continues, Ketzad Sidur Akravaton. Musaf Shabbos Tchila. Shabbos goes first. V'acharav Musaf HaChodesh. Then the Rosh Chodesh. V'acharav Musaf Yom Tov. And then the Musaf of the Yontif, which is Rosh Chodesh. Shekol Tadir Mechaviro, Kodem et Chaviro. Because whatever is more frequent than its fellow precedes its fellow. V'chein kol mekudash mechaviro kodem et chaviro. Also, that which is more sanctified than its fellow precedes its fellow. Wait a minute. If you were telling me mikudash, then if I have to bring a tamid, Musaf Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, and Yontif, the order of mikudash is Shabbos is a holier day, and then Rosh Hashanah, then Rosh Chodesh, then the tamid. But we do it tamid, Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah, and the Kodesh would be Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh, Tamid.
Because Mekudash is better than Tadir, no?
Well,
Mekudash and Tadir, you go by Mekudash.
In this case, you don't. And the Rambam then says, Tadir Mekudash, Yakdish Eza Mehem Yirtzeh. All things be equal. Tadir Mekudash, Yakdim Eza She Mehem Yirtzeh.
So that's why they say, like in Kedusha, like if you're doing Shmona Esrei, but if you do now Shmona Esrei, you won't be able to say Kedusha. So what's better, to wait for Kedusha or to start Shmona Esrei and then to do Kedusha with the Chazan? This is better to start Shmona Esrei, no?
Yeah, I don't know if that necessarily falls into this category here. The Rambam's going to give us more examples, so we can try maybe finding rules here. But the example I just gave is a little bit false. Xeris because of that, the Talmud has to go first and last. But between the Musafim, Mikudash would have told us Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh. Or you could say, no, maybe I've got it wrong. Mikudash in this case has nothing to do with it. I'm not defining Mikudash right. Mikudash means a sanctified item. The Musafim are all the same Kodesh level. They're all Musafim. They're all Olos. The days are holier. Shabbos is holier than Rosh Hashanah, which is holier than Rosh Chodesh, which is holier than a weekday. But the Musafim are all Musafim. They're all burnt offerings and Chataot. Burnt offerings and Chataot are all Kodesh Kadashim. So it's false. Okay? My proposition is false. The Rambam just bring up this rule. In this case, they're all Mikudash. So what wins? Tadir. Tamid, Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah, Tamid, Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah. So that's how it should go. They're all the same Mikudash. So now that we've defined our terms, we can continue over here. Okay. Good job, guys. Var o shachach, l'shachat et she'eno tadir, o apachot b'kedusha tchila. Whatever. Person made a mistake. He violated the rule or he forgot. He slaughtered. Remember, the Kohanim don't have to do the slaughtering. He slaughtered that which is not more frequent or which is less holy first. So finish that korban. And then he continues with slaughtering that which is less frequent or less holy. So prime example would be the two Musafin. Okay, two Musafin today, Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. So the Kohen should know, or the Kohanim should know, Shabbos Musaf first, then Rosh Chodesh. But if they did Rosh Chodesh Musaf first, so finish that, then do Shabbos. Or Lahefich, it's a weekday. There's no Tadir right now. You bring to the temple a Shlomim and an Asham. Okay? The Shlomim, peace offering, and Asham is a guilt offering. The Asham is holier. So you are supposed to offer the Asham first. And you're a Shochet, so you ask the Kohen to come over. He has to catch the blood, but you're going to slaughter the Asham. But for whatever reason, you decide to do your Shlomim first. You were unaware, you had forgotten the rule that Shlomim goes second. And the Kohen also didn't know. So you guys finish working the Korban, the Shlomim, offer the Shlomim, and then bring the Asham. Make sense? When was the last time you brought a Shlomim or an Asham? Usually people who have complicated purifications bring a number of different sacrifices. Like the Nazir, he brings one of each. He brings an Olah, and a Chatas, and a Shlomim. Okay? So, the Chatas, we said, a purification. He has to. The only way he could demote a Nazir because he's so holy is by offering a Chatas. The Torah, they have different sacrifices. And the woman who gave birth, she has to bring a burnt offering and a sin offering. Okay, good. So this happens quite often. You have to know which of your sacrifices is holier. They're slaughtered simultaneously. You have enough people who know how to do shechita at present. So what you do is have Zeh, the guy holding the blood, it's the Kohen, stir the blood so it doesn't clot. Ad she'yizorek dama tadir o dama kudash. So that which is normally more frequent is thrown on the mizbeach first, or that which is holier is thrown on the mizbeach first, using the two cases that we used as an illustration. So let's see priorities. Dama chatas kodem l'dam ha'olah. Chatas and olah are both kodesh kodashim. Right? How do we know that? What does it say in Ezum Kolman? They're both slaughtered on the north side of the altar. And regular people don't eat of the chatas or the olah. So dama chatas is holier than dama olah. Let's say the Kohanim are in line. Okay? What blood do you apply to the mizbeach first? Chatas blood goes before olah blood. Right? What does it say the olah is holier? Because the olah is entirely burned. No, that's talking about the limbs. The blood of the chatas is maybe holier than the blood of the burnt offering. Mipnei shedama chatas mechaper. He asked a good question. Dama chatas is mechaper. Dam of the olah doesn't. So that means it's holier. Holiness, as Rav Shechter likes to say, holiness in Judaism means more mitzvahs or halachas apply to this than its other of its kind. What makes Shabbos holier? Prohibitions. There's more mitzvahs to do on Shabbos. What makes a Jew holy? Asher kedushav v'mitzvosav. Jews have been given more commandments than Gentiles. Why is the Kohen holier? Because he has more commandments than halachas. Right?
So Ashkenazim are more holy than Sfardim?
I don't know what commandments do we have that they don't.
Prohibitions.
They have more, but they brought it upon themselves. So God didn't decree it. What? So a Nazir does it, but the Torah said he has the option. Okay? The Torah never said, you have to bring. Yeah, okay, you're defaulting. That's a Haredi bumper sticker, right? Yeah, they said. Rabbi Yashiv says this. Everybody has to listen to him. So here's the things they want. Rabbi Yashiv said, "Don't wear wigs." Did everybody listen to that? No, of course not. What? Okay, it's before your time. It's like Rabbi Yashiv said. They used to have Posek Ador cards. Everything Rabbi Yashiv says. Ironically, the people putting that are the people who say who have a vested interest in everybody listening to him. So everybody holds like Rabbi Yashiv except when they don't. It's like the Shulchan Aruch. We hold exactly like the Shulchan Aruch except when we don't. Okay. Evrei Olah Kodmim le'imurei Chatath. The limbs of the Olah take precedence over the limbs of the Chatas. Most of the Chatas is burned. Not all of it is. Right? There are parts of the Chatas that they actually, the Kohanim take aside and eat. Right? Because the burnt offering, all of it goes onto the fire. Not all of the Chatas. So understand, it's interesting. The Chatas and the Olah each have an advantage over the other. The blood of the Chatas is holier than the blood of the Olah, but the Evarim of the Olah are holier than that of the Chatas.
So
Yeah. The skin? No, the skin is given to the Kohanim.
yeah, but if it's a chatas, it is both, no?
No. Only chatos nisrafos, which are the minimum. That's a minority of them. Okay? The vast majority of chatos, they skin them, just like the Ola, and it goes to the Kohanim who are on duty. There's another interesting gift given to Kohanim on duty, Gezel Ager. You heard of Gezel Ager? Well, what's the thing? A person who steals has to give back with a fine. Okay? He stole. He robbed. It's robbery, not just the theft, the robbery. So if he steals from a ger, he also has to give it back to the ger, right? Let's say the ger dies before he can give it back to him. Now, normally, a ger dies without any heirs. So what happens to his property? Whoever, free for all. Right? So it's like a complete hefker. So this guy has to give back. What's he going to do? He has to make restitution to the ger, but the ger is dead. What's he going to do? Mafkir the money? So the answer is, the pasuk says he has to give it to the Kohanim. Now, normally you have something to give to the Kohanim, bigvulin. What does it mean? For example, I slaughter my cow. Minastam, I have to give parts of the cow to the Kohen. It's a priestly gift. And I shear my sheep, I have to give some to the Kohen. And I take truma from my crops, I have to give some to the Kohen, right? So I live up north, I give it to my local Kohen, right? My choice, I give it to the Kohen. With Gezel Ager, you can't just find a Kohen, or Pidyon Aben. Find a Kohen and give him the shkalim to get your son back, God willing. Right? So what happens? You can't just pick this Kohen. Gezel Ager, you actually have to go to the Beis HaMikdash and give the money to the Kohanim on duty. And they split it among themselves. It's like a korban almost. It's not a korban, but this specific gift. No, Gezel Ager. Pidyon Aben, you don't have to find a Kohen or a Kohen on duty. You can pick your Kohen. That's, yeah. Okay? Instead, you actually have to go to the temple and give it to the Kohanim on duty. Okay? So that's a priestly gift to the ones on duty. Just like the skins. We saw the skins of the korbanos go to whom? The Kohanim who are on duty.
Or the Bar-Hayim.
Well, sometimes it goes to the Baalim. But things like Olas and Chatas, it goes to the Olos Tzibur, for example. All the korbanos we just said now. It's Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, right? So how many Olos were there? It was like 30 Olos that day, right? And Chatos, that all goes to the Kohanim. They get a lot of skin.
Wait,
a lot of leather.
The skin of a cow, which is a Baal Mum, gets boned.
If they slaughtered a Baal Mum,
skinned it.
None of this is Baal Mum. We're talking about actual korbanos in the temple that was done right.
So yeah, but if it's getting burnt instead of you giving to the Kohanim, so it's more kadosh.
No, in this case, it's not burnt on the mizbeach. It's taken out to Beis Hadeshin.
And it's asur b'ana.
Yeah, but it's
so if it's asur b'ana, it's more kadosh.
No, that's not kadosh.
Why?
Just asur b'ana. You should know. Avodah zarah is also asur b'ana.
Oh,
Okay. Just because it's asur b'ana, it's not kadosh. Okay. So basically, what I'm trying to say is the Kohanim are entitled to the skins. So the skin that doesn't have anything to do. Here, when we said dam chatas, there's the dam of the Ivarim. So the dam of the chatas is holier, and the ola the Ivarim are holier, and the skin is the same. It all goes to the Kohanim. So what do? Dam chatas every ola. The blood of the chatas we said is holier than the blood of the ola, but the limbs of the ola are holier than the limbs of the chatas. What comes first? The Kohanim need to put stuff on the mizbeach. They have blood of the chatas to put on the mizbeach, and the every ola to put on the mizbeach. What comes first? Eza sheyirtza yaktim. Dam chatas every ola, not dam chatas dam ola.
Oh, Ivari.
Dam ola ve'imuri chatas. The blood of the ola, imuri chatas. The lesser of both of them. O dam ola ve'dam asham. Dam asham sometimes doesn't atone. It's not a chatas. What do you mean? For certain averas I bring a chatas. For certain averas I bring an asham. So an asham is more like a guilt offering. It doesn't atone.
A nazir brings an asham.
A type of asham when he contaminates himself.
Yeah.
But not all nazir.
And the Matzorah gives an asham.
Yeah. So it's not a kapara.
He brings a kapara and a Matzorah?
Not necessarily. The chatas is it. Let me read. Let me show you what the nazir does. Okay. To clarify, a question came in from someone at home. What does a nazir do when he's done with the nazir? The nazir completes a service. What does he do? One lamb as a burnt offering. One she lamb as a chatos, and one ram as a shlamim. So the Nazir, when he completes his term, brings ola shlamim chatos, as I said. What's the one that purifies him, that gets rid of the aspect of Nazirus? The chatos. But if the Nazir gets contaminated, okay, which will have to restart the whole count. Let's say he says he's going to be a Nazir for a year. 9 months in, he gets contaminated by contact with the dead. So he's going to have to start a whole new year of Nazirus. And those Kabbanos are going to have to wait. But if he did become contaminated, he has to bring a different korban, which is he has to bring two birds. Okay? So that's what he has to do. So Nazir doesn't bring an Asham in this case, right? But he has to. No, he doesn't bring an Asham.
When does he?
Doesn't bring an Asham.
When does he bring?
No, he doesn't.
A Nazir never brings an Asham?
No, he brings a Chatos.
I thought if. I think the Mishneh says that he brings an Asham. He's the only one who brings an Asham.
There are a lot of people bring Asham.
I mean, out of people who sin.
We have here, for example, we went back here. When is an Asham brought? A whole different cases of Asham. There's an Asham Talui and Asham Me'ilos, Asham Shifra Charufa. Here. You have the list? You want to find the complete. Oh, you have it in there at the beginning of the book. Look, you have it in the appendix. I'll show you all the cases. Well,
we're learning about the Pesach today, and it's also in the Parashah, so a lot of things work together.
Yes.
And so I don't know. Yeshua, I was thinking about the Pesach. Abba can teach you much more than I can about it. We start.
Okay. So here's the Ashamos. Ready? Okay. There's the Asham Talui. What's an Asham Talui?
Asham Talui.
That means a person may have committed a sin.
Yeah.
So he wants like a hold on the sin. He's not ready to bring a chatos. There's Asham Gazelos, Asham Shifcha Charufa, Asham Me'ilos, and the Minchas Asota. Sorry, not Minchas Asota. I'm just reading the next thing. So there's the three of them right there. See? Asham Gazelos and the rest of them.
Oh, Nazir brings a shlamim.
Yeah, I said that. These are the big three. Okay? Chatos and Ola. Okay? That's all we have over here. Okay? So my point is the Ashamos aren't necessarily atonements. Okay? Why do you know it's not atonement? Because an Asham just tells you about the person's status. He's guilty of something. Chatos is from the verb l'chatei, to purify. Like l'chaper. It's actually called that. And Ola, it says, also there is a kapara aspect of an Ola, but an Ola is just a burnt offering. It doesn't have a verb to it that means atonement. Right? Yeah. Because I saw that in there. Chatos, not necessarily for people who sinned even. It's for purifying things. Okay. Let's see. Chatos kodemes la'ola. The chatos takes precedence over the ola. In what case? Hold on a second. Yeah. This means that two korbanos, a person has to bring, let's say, one echad l'olah ve'echad l'chatos, which is a refrain in the halachas there. There's a usual refrain, for example, the pairs of birds that a woman has to bring. Afilu chatos of kodemes lo'olas behema. So even a chatos is of an oath, a single bird that has to be a chatos, that takes precedent over a burnt offering that has to be made out of a non-bird animal, the 5 behemoths. Shnemar ein asher l'chatav rishonah. Sorry, the 3 behemoths. Okay, it says that regarding what is it? The person has to bring an olive, korban olive yored. Okay, he has to bring the chatos first, and Chazal say that's a binyanav l'chol chatos. It's a binyanav for all the other chatos that the chatos takes place before the olah. Sheiko debet l'olah ba'ima. L'chein b'shat of rasha mafrisha chatat tchila. If a person, for example, a nazir, has to go to his flocks and say, I need to pick out an animal to be the chatos or a different animal to be the olah, so he first designates the chatos and then the olah. Chatos comes first in these cases. What about korbanos achag? Korbanos achag, normally the chag is referring to sukkahs, okay, but sometimes all the moedos, what we see, it has a list. There's parim, and there's ayil, and then there's the kvasim, and then the seir chatos. So everything there is an olah before the chatos, but it always has the chatos last. So it says shneimar kimishpatam ketzad batchila parim. First, do it the way it says in the Torah. The Torah always tells you how many parim are part of the musaf, and afterwards the elim, and afterwards the kvasim, lachreim seirim, and then the seir chatos is always tacked on at the end. Afal pisha seirim chatot v'chol elu shekadmu osam la'olos. You understood this important halacha? If you're a Baal Kriya, you would have seen this. There's we just said chatos comes before an olah. A man's bringing his chatos or olah, even the designation comes first. But in all the Musafim in Parshas Pinchas, like we read today, it always tells you the list of olos, and then the chatos last. As a matter of fact, in the holidays like Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, it says, do this, do that, everything, usir chatos echad, and don't forget the chatos. Mashma, that in each of the Musafim, the chatos is always the last one, even though it's technically holier. Okay? So it's not a personal chatos. There's
Only
no
the blood is holier, you said.
No, but just the chatos itself. If we could do the whole service of the chatos, it means we're going to process all the animals. The chatos, the seir, the he goat. I was going to say the sea goat goes first.
Before an
Sorry,
olah?
it goes after. No, normally if you bring a he goat as a sin offering and a par as an olah, you're going to do your chatos first. You have to go on and finish this korban first. Do this one first, finish first, and then do the bowl.
Didn't we say that now the opposite? Olah
We
is
said beforehand if a person made a mistake, you already have the blood in your hands. The Kohen already has the blood of this one and the blood of that one, or the limbs of this one, the limbs of that one. They're more Kohanim on duty. Who gets online first? Remember, Kohanim can't just push and shove to go up the ramp of the
They
Zbeach.
used to.
You bring. I know they shouldn't. Okay, you have a bull to offer as a sacrifice. You're gonna have one Kohen take the entire bull and put it on the altar. They're gonna have to cut into pieces and have a procession up the altar with the bull, right? So your bull's Avarim, because an Olah take place then if you had brought a he goat as a sacrifice, also as a sin offering. So the Kohanim who have the pieces of the bull would go before the Kohanim, I guess, or who have the piece of the he goat. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but at least throwing the blood of the bull comes first. Sorry, the blood of the chatos would come first. The Avarim of the Olah come before the Avarim of the chatos. But with the Musaf, it's the other way around. Because the Musaf always has the chatos last, mashma, it's slaughtered last. It's slaughtered after all the other kabbalas. Because that's the order in the pasuk. It says 2 parim, an ayil, and 7 kvasim, and then a he goat for a sin offering. Yeah. It's always an afterthought. You look at all the parshas, it's like the last pasuk. Starts with, on Rosh Chodesh, okay, Shnei parim and an ayil and 7 kvasim. And then
Go by numbers.
What?
7 to 1.
No, it goes 217 or 117. Always 217, 117, or on Sukkot it's like crazy. It's a lot more bulls, more rams, a lot more lambs. The planets of Sukkot are like easily double what everything else is. A lot more bulls. And it has to add up to 70. You offer more bulls on Sukkot than you do all the other holidays in Rosh Chodeshim combined. Right? For Rosh Chodesh, assuming let's say you have 2 bulls every Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is they only do the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh 12 times a year. That's 24 bulls, plus 14 on Pesach. Okay, so that's 38. 2 more on Shavuos. That's 40. Then Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Shmini Atzeres is 43 bulls. And in Sukkot you get 70. Okay. Korbanos Achag and Ochein, we just read that. Next. V'chein b'shigat tzibur ba'avodah zara. What happens if everybody worshipped idols? Why would everybody worship idols? Accidentally. No, not Iranidachas. This is talking about the case where there was a ruling of the Sanhedrin that permitted an act that was idolatrous. So what happened in the Sanhedrin? They had an argument, a big there was a big deliberation regarding eating the Eucharist. Okay,
Who's that?
now that's something that Christians do. Okay, they eat a piece of matzah every day on Sunday, every Sunday, and some wine instead of having a seder. Okay, so that's a pretty Christian-y thing to do. So that's the Sanhedrin were arguing, is eating such a thing an actual act of avodah zarah that's as an Isser Kares
On Sunday
or whatever it is on any other day, the sanctified wafer. So the Sanhedrin voted 50 to 21 to declare that such an act was avodah zarah. You shouldn't do it. Fine, that's good. No one does it. Let's say it was the reverse. The Sanhedrin permitted 50 to 21 that such a thing is not an Isser Kares. Might even be permissible if it was baked, if the matzah is kosher. And you had 21 members of the Sanhedrin sitting there saying, we still firmly believe, even though we lost the vote, that this is forbidden, and we are going to spend, not telling people not to violate this thing, we're not going to go against the Sanhedrin, but we're going to spend every day trying to convince you otherwise that you're wrong. We're going to continue arguing this one. And 2 years later, they come to the conclusion that the minority is actually right, take a new vote. This turns out this was an Isser Kares all along, and the Sanhedrin told everybody to do the wrong thing. So everybody was violating an Isser Kares involving avodah zarah. Pretty bad, right? So now they have to bring par helam davar and a sir avodah zarah. Okay. So what is it? There's shehein meviim par ola usir chatos. Okay. They have to bring a bull as a burnt offering and a sir chatos. Okay. Shigas avodah zarah. Okay. If it was any other avero, it would just be a regular par helam davar, right? But in this case, because of avodah zarah, it's the different korban. So the bull comes first. Shouldn't the chatos come first? We just read the chatos should come first.
No less.
Chatos before ola. We said all things being equal. This isn't a musaf. Hapar kodem shnemarbo kibishpat. It says in kamishpat. It says in the pasuk kamishpat. Why? What's the mishpat? Because it's written first. Okay, it's written in the Torah that way. Mishpat means what? Not just the justice or the ruling. It also means what's written. Okay, so it's written that way. Lefar kohen Mashiach kodem lefar helim davar shel tzibur. Let's say the kohen Mashiach, when the kohen gadol gives, sometimes he's worthy of giving halachic pronouncement. You have a kohen gadol who's a big chacham, and he allowed himself to do something that was actually a really big no-no. He has to bring a special korban at that point, a special chatos. Okay. Meanwhile, you have the par helam davar of the tzibur. You have the par that's brought when the tzibur made a big mistake based on the Sanhedrin's ruling, but not avodah zarah. Okay, everybody's been eating chaylev all along because the Sanhedrin allowed them to. Then they find out the mistake. There's a par helam davar. So what comes first? Par kohen Mashiach or par helam davar? So it says par kohen Mashiach goes first. Why? Because it says in the pasuk par kohen Mashiach is before par helam davar. Okay. Far elam kodem lefar avodah zarah, and the par elam davar for all the other avers comes before par avodah zarah. Par elam davar, I'm not mistaken, is in Vayikra right there. Par avodah zarah is in the middle of Bamidbar. Far avodah zarah kodem l'seir shelah. Okay, and the par of the avodah zarah becomes before the seir that's with it, because that the psukim there the par is first. Afal bisha par olav asir chatas. Because that's the order written in the Torah. Where is this brought up? It's in the end of Parshas Vayikra. You familiar? Open up your Tanakh if you want to see it. Show it to you here. Here's what it says. It introduces the fourth parak, begins with chatos. People do things that are wrong. The first one on the list is Ima Kohena Mashiach Yechata, if the anointed Kohen were to sin. So that's the Kohen Gadol, he goes first. V'im Kol Adat Yisrael Yishgu, and if all of the community sin, that's the Par Helm Davar, V'asu, and it says that they bring a par ben bakar. And then asher nasiya chata. If a nasi were to sin, as we saw before in the Rambam's ruling, nasi means the highest ranking Jew. Normally it refers to the king, but the Rambam has in a few places the nasi of the Sanhedrin also has a status. So I'm trying to tell people you need a Sanhedrin first before you can have a king. There's no such thing as Judaism without leadership. Whoever is the de facto greatest sage of his time is also the de facto leader, even if he's not an anointed king. That's what the Shoftim were, basically. That's what heads of the Sanhedrin were. But they're supposed to appoint a king. Interesting piece of history. I should make a video about this. Moshe Rabbeinu is halakhically a king. He's like the Rambam's type of king. Nasi, Shofet, Navi, whatever it might be. That's a Moshe Rabbeinu. But he's appointed a real king. What he did to Yeshua, he appointed a Yeshua. Moshe Rabbeinu was not appointed by a Navi. So Yeshua was the first king. So too in Samuel's time. Samuel was a Levite Navi who had all of the authority. He was basically the Shofet and the ruler of the Jews. And when they asked him for a king, he was basically asking for a replacement. Just like Yoshua, the first Ephraimite king, was preceded by Moshe Rabbeinu, who was a Levi Navi who appointed him, so too David HaMelech was the messianic king of his time, who was appointed by the Levi Navi, who had the authority at the time. That was Shmuel. And it might even happen before the Melech HaMashiach shows up. We'll have a great Levi Navi arise among the Jews, like an El Navi type. Many hold the El Navi is from the Shevet Levi. And he will arise, and he will eventually appoint the Messianic king.
Like what the Hashmonaim should have done?
Yes, but they didn't have him. It was, according to the Ramban at least, yeah, that's what should have been. But there was no Navi among them. They were looking for a Navi. That was the first thing. So the first stage is having a Nasi. So what we see from these verses is in Vayikra, with regards to non-Avodah Zarah Chatos, the order is Koy Gadol, Tzibur, Nasi, ordinary person. And Par Helam Davar of Avodah Zarah is in, what do you call it? It's after Shlach. Oops, I jumped into Bamidbar. What do you have there? In Korach. In the middle parshas. Well, what was that?
Like a Kohen Mashuach Melchama?
No, it means a Kohen Gadol. A Mashuach Melchama is sort of like a Kohen Gadol. He becomes like a number 2. Because they anointed him. So he has to dress like the Kohen Gadol. But he's not the Kohen Gadol. If they didn't choose the Kohen Gadol for Mashuach Melchama, he has to wait for the Kohen Gadol to go. Okay? Here's where it says here. It's the end of Shlach. Okay? There's a lot of mitzvahs in Shlach. Okay? If you have worship of Avodah Zarah for the tzibur, and then it talks about the individual. Okay? So that's why the Rambam says, really technically speaking, there's a lot of different korbanos here, but the order appears in the psukim, the different chatos for these averas, is that Kohen Gadol, tzibur, king, or nasi, and then hedyot, the regular person. Rambam has it in a few places. Nasi, Rambam says, means the king, like the Rambam says, like the Rashi says, and then Rambam modifies it and says sometimes Nasi is non-king. Head of the Sanhedrin, for example, also has a din. Once the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, the Jews stopped having a king again, right? So who is the head Jew? The Romans eventually, when they were nice to the Jews, they recognized the head of the Sanhedrin as the leader of the Jews. And he carried the title of Nasi. Well, Gedaliah was a governor. Okay? So he was just appointed Nebuchadnezzar. He was not head of a Sanhedrin. But he was basically whatever. He was there. I'm thinking more of like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbi Gamliel. Anybody called Gamliel, Yehuda, or Shimon from the times of the Mishnah until after the times of the Talmud. They had many names. They kept repeating those names. The Nesiim start with Hillel, Shimon, Gamliel, Rabbi Gamliel, the elder, the famous Rabbi Gamliel of Temple times. Then Rashbag, the first, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, the second Shimon, who was around at the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Gamliel the second, who was in Yavne. His son Rashbag too, who's the Rashbag of the Mishnah, who Rabbi Yonasi refers to and argues with his father. And then Yehuda. So it goes Hillel, Shimon, Gamliel. Shimon, Gamliel, Shimon, Yehuda. And Rabbi Yehuda Nassi's children were Shimon and Gamliel. I only said one Hillel so far. Okay, but there were multiple Hillels. Sorry, now we have to start again. Starts with Hillel, Shimon, Gamliel, Shimon, Gamliel, Shimon. Sorry, there's two Gamliels. Hillel, Shimon, Gamliel, Shimon, Gamliel, Shimon, and then Yehuda. Okay?
So I didn't know which is which.
Oh, you're studying history. You associate each one with a different part of history. The first Rabban Shimon ben Hillel, there's basically nothing said about him because his own father died at the age of 120. And he didn't outlive his father by much. And Hillel was a big shot. And Hillel's grandson, Rabbi Gamliel, there's a lot in the Gemara and the Mishneh about him. And even in secular sources. Even the Christians mention him. Okay? He's all over the place. Rabbi Gamliel the first. Okay, he's in a lot of different sources. Very famous man of history. The patriarch. And his son Shimon is also all over the place. He's one of the Asara Haruge Malchus. Rashbag the first was put to death with Rabbi Yishmael Kohen Gadol. Okay, the Romans captured him, but his son escaped. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai wanted Rabbi Gamliel II to survive, that family should survive. He took up residence in Yavne. He started the Sanhedrin in Yavne. He was deposed. He was Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus's brother-in-law. Okay, his sister was Ima Shalom. He has a lot of Ima Shalom. It means Safta Shalom.
Her name was Shalom?
Her name was Shalom, yes.
Shalom is a woman's name.
Like Shalom Sion, yeah. So these Gamliels, we know about them. Rashbag, his son, is around the times of Bar Kokhba and had a lot of difficulties. And also is Rabbi Yehuda Nassi's father. And Rabbi Yehuda Nassi, how can you not know about him? So that's the first how we get to them. And he had two sons, Shimon and Gamliel. And I always get the two confused. One was a big Torah scholar. The other one was appointed as Nassi after him. And then it continues, Gamliel Yehuda, Gamliel Yehuda, Gamliel Yehuda.
Two Rabbi Shimon and Gamliel who contradict themselves. You can say one's the son, one's the grandson.
One's from the time of the Khurban, and one's from the time of Bar Kokhba revolt. So we'll stop here, just finish this historical note. So it continues, basically the names Gamliel and Yehuda switch off. And when you have Yehuda Nasiya, it refers to a descendant of Rabbi Yehuda Nassi, who is not Rabbi Yehuda Nassi. Nasiya is Aramaic for Hanassi. So in the Rishalmi, in Rabbi Yochanan's time already, you have Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya and other heads of the Sanhedrin who lived in the Galilee who weren't Tanoim. And already the quality of their Torah was going down. And one of their descendants was Hillel II. Hillel Nasiya was a contemporary of Abaye and Rava. He was not in Bavel. And he's the one, according to our Rishonim, is the one who promulgated our calendar. He's the one who officially decided. Sanhedrin's having a hard time doing this, so he's there.
He did the Korech also?
No, Hillel did Korech. Hillel the first one, and everybody else disagreed with him. So you have that eventually the Byzantines put a stop to the Sanhedrin and the head of the Sanhedrin. They persecuted them.
The head of the Byzantines, they had the Sanhedrin?
Yes, the Sanhedrin persisted until the times of the Byzantines. So we'll stop it here because my throat can't handle anymore. And we'll take your questions and comments, I guess, next time. Close with the prayer. We live to see the destruction of Israel's enemies speedily in our days.